Alright, I guess we got Road to Richmond here. Yeah, I don't trust this. Which is from the Blue and Gray series, sort of a ninth wheel off the series, as it were. By the way, I have this wonderful scavenged wine. I found a couple little tiny bottles of Gallo. I know it's good because it says it's from California. No, I think somebody left it by the pool. They drank 2 bottles of it, a couple probably, and decided, this isn't worth taking back to the condo. Let's just leave it here. Maybe some poor schmuck wants it. Well, I wanted it. If you smoke, it's not so bad for you. Oh. All right. So what do we got? I guess the first thing to say is, when I first played this Napoleon at Waterloo, maybe a few others, I said, oh jeez, these give me almost nothing. They give very little insight into the actual actions that are going on. The realism is, it's so hard to say. But without artillery providing defensive fire, and that would have been a bitch to implement, with the general feel of the game, it just it feels so generic. I could be playing an old Avalon Hill Battle of the Bulge. I could be playing, not Africa Corps probably, because that has some really weird aspects to it, which maybe capture a flavor of the campaign, but they really leave a strange taste in my mouth. I can play Anzio. I feel like it's a good solid system. This very basic war game system. The move, the zone of control, whether or not the zone of controls are as fixed as they are in this game is questionable, whether you should be able to withdraw easily. I'm used to games where you can pull out of the zone of control and move around. It's kind of interesting to see the effects, though, of this engaged in combat. I do like the attacker retreats, the little addendum added to this game where the unit becomes pretty much ineffective for the entirety of the day. I think this is a nice scale to handle a day. Something like the 7 Days Battle. This is just a very short 3-hour game, maybe 4-hour game. I stretch it out over the whole day, of course, but that's just me. But the turns don't take much time at all. They take 3 or 4 hours may seem actually longer than it really is. It may be more like, 20 turns. I'd say each turn takes about 10 minutes. So yeah, 3 hours sounds about right. The rules are very, very simple. And I used to just look down on these and say, I'm not getting anything out of this. However, now that I know more, at least about what games portray, etc., having played a lot more games, I get a pretty good shot of the big picture here. It may not be a lot of detail. There's no way that it can be with a game like this. But there's something very pleasing about watching the units moving about and maneuvering the way they do in this game. I feel like it captures some of the essence of something like Lee versus Grant without all the complexity. It actually does manage to get that kind of hard to break away from an enemy once you're engaged, and that's these rigid zones of control, the fixed zones. And otherwise, this sort of game of maneuvering, trying to slip behind, trying to get a good grip on the enemy's unit so you can actually do something. And even when you do, the combat chart is so non-violent. And this is where SPI wins out over everyone. These retreats, as opposed to eliminators. The units remain functional. And this works very well, I think, in operational scale games. And to me, the grand tactical that this takes on is really an operational style game, if nothing else. Anyway, whatever's there is about it, I've grown fonder of this one at least. You know, at first I played it a couple of times and said, "Oh man, I like Stonewall a lot better," and I like the Napoleon's Art of War, which have some little more chromy features. This kind of boils it down and says, "Here's some rough terrain," and it plays out very, very nicely for what it is. What it does not do is it doesn't come down to one of, at least it doesn't feel to me like it comes down to what Africa Core comes down to, which is this sort of weird geometric game where a one hex difference that's hard to see on the board can make all the difference on who wins or loses the game. And I'm not sure how many of the Avalon Hill Classics are that way, but I've played a lot more Africa Core than I have, say, Battle of the Bulge. It's, you know, something that vaguely interests me. This one just felt so flavorless when I first used to play it, but now that picture comes alive for me in a way. Maybe it's my age. Some of it is, there's this much less effort put into this. And now that I'm working and you know, don't have, I'm maybe not as focused as I was in terms of being able to pick up rules and understand them. I think there's a lot to that. I'm finding it a lot harder to cope with some of the more difficult games with my age. OCS feels okay, I guess, but again, the more fiddly, the more aspects that I have to deal with, and I think a lot of people my age and older have run into this. It just doesn't, it's not capturing quite as much of the excitement, yet strangely, this is capturing more excitement than it was before. When I look at some of the things like, I don't know, the Ancient Battles Deluxe is an example, and I would guess things like the Victory Point games, Napoleonic 20 and stuff like that are very much along that line, where I feel like I'm playing chess, you know, moves, and that's how I feel with some of the moves in Africa Core. That's not here. This is a broader story than what I'm getting there. It gives me a better visual of what's going on, and that's important. I don't feel like it's a geometric counting everywhere. I feel like I've got this broad plan that I'm pursuing. I have enough pieces, enough complexity to take my mind, and that was always the case. This never felt like I was just playing a game where, oh, if I move this piece here, then he'll go there. No, it was just, oh yeah, I want to push down this road as far as I can. You know, I want to try to outflank him here. And then if he falls back successfully, that's great. If he doesn't, that's, you know, that's even greater, right? Because now I have him pocketed. And I don't know, there's enough pieces in this to still keep my interest. One thing that's kind of funny about this is because I didn't like it very much when I first got into gaming, it never really caught me. And it never stuck in my head as something, oh yeah, I like to play that solo. In fact, usually I'd look at these games and say, okay. Like I'd run into some of the stuff that came out in S&Ts and in, maybe not so much in Wargamer, but yeah, some of them came out in the Wargamer. And I would just say, wow, this looks really, you know, great. I bought what looked like an interesting battle, one that I didn't have covered, and it turns out I've got Napoleon at Waterloo again. But, you know, after playing this one, and maybe I don't feel this about most of them, but after playing this one, I do feel like I've got this really neat maneuver game where I could see what was going on in a way that I'm not used to. And it may just be that I didn't give this attention because it didn't have enough meat on it back in the day. I also never tend to play these against an experienced opponent. So the few times that I've played them, they've generally been blowouts because I'll play it against, say, this was something I introduced my wife to very early, and I introduced my ex-wife to not all that early, because we were, I don't know, we moved more quickly through the war games, so this just wasn't on my mind as a good introductory game. We were heading towards different, more complicated games early on, and then fell back to this, going in the walkthrough history that we did. But, I'm pleasantly surprised with this. Some of it may just be my mood after the Holocaust. I want something simple. I want it to be over in a day, of my normal gaming, and which is at 3 hours or so. And, I don't know what else to look at. Things like Britannia I've already covered. I wanted it to be something I hadn't covered yet. Most of the games that came to mind along these lines I have covered. And, well, I actually have a pile of them I just got, but ones that I knew that were familiar to me, the Britannias, which is a little longer, I think, and more effort. The Napoleon's Art of War, Breitenfeld, they did the 30 Years' War quad too. This one really kind of pleased me in a sense that only really Breitenfeld had before, and now the 30 Years' War quad was kind of cool too. It leads me to wonder, gee, is the rest, when I read the comments, supposedly this is the worst out of all the quad, they did a 2-quad series on Blue and Gray 1, Blue and Gray 2, both 4 games, and then they came out with this a couple of years later. This one is often kind of denigrated as being the worst of the series. I think there's an interesting little maneuver game here, and I'm wondering, are the others even better, or is it a matter of just maybe this one doesn't have enough of the straight conflict that interests the people who are in it. I also saw some comments saying the Union has the advantage in this one. Maybe, maybe not. Clearly you can make an error with the Union. Anyway, it was enjoyable to play this. I guess I'm back to flying colors because this took a little longer than I thought. Not so much in terms of overall time playing, but in terms of my day. Like, I took longer breaks or whatever within it, so I don't really feel like doing another rules introduction, and I don't know anything else that I can just grab and throw down without one that I feel up to doing at this late hour of the day. Which is fine, because the current flying color, the next flying colors I have looks like a big battle, so that'll probably take me through to the weekend, and then assuming the couple of attempts I've made to try to reach out and get a group going don't get any information, I'll be able to do something neat solo. And that's cool. I mean, in a lot of ways I prefer solo gaming. I'm more really looking at gaming as an avenue to find people that I want to be around more than anything else, I guess, which is weird. All right.